When I was in college, I was a heavy partier. I would go to just about every house party I heard about, and I got to know a lot of people in that crowd. Or at least I think I did. I wasn't one of those jocks or anything. I was just one of those people that like to drink a lot and have better memories of the beginnings of parties than I do the middle or end. I usually went by myself, hoping to meet people there. But a lot of the time, the only thing I got to know was the bottom of the bottle. One night, my drinking habit almost got me into serious trouble. I was at this guy named Larry's house. He was a bit of a geek, but somehow he had the privilege of having this huge house right off campus that was perfect for partying. This particular night was the third or fourth time I'd gone to a party at Larry's. They were always a blast. It was packed every time, and that night was even crazier. It was a New Year's party. Everybody was there, starting from the football team, the jocks, the cheerleaders, the frat boys, all the sorority girls, plus the clout chasers like me, and just about every kind of person you can imagine. There was a hot tub and a pool, and the most fun thing to do was to climb on the roof and jump into the pool with a cannonball or something. But nobody was allowed to jump from the second floor balcony. That was Larry's one forbidden rule. No matter how packed it got, nobody was ever allowed to go upstairs. Of course, that drew everyone's attention to the unlit staircase around the corner, but nobody dared to break the rule. Larry might have been a nerd, but he was the man in charge of the house, and he had some respect for that. Nobody wanted to be banned from Larry's parties, and neither did I, of course. But unfortunately, I went a little too hard at the New Year's party. I pre-drank by downing a couple beers before I got there. I then grabbed one within the first minute. Then I had another, then another, and another. By the time it was getting close to the new year, it was on like 8 or 10. The whole house was spinning, and from what I heard about my behavior from others later on, I was pretty belligerent. I was about 5 minutes from passing out when I crashed on the living room couch and wouldn't move. At the time of the night, I could hear all the commotion of people hurrying outside to light fireworks at midnight. I wanted to go out there too, but I knew that amount of movement just wasn't in me. I was the last person in the house and Larry was hovering over me, trying to get me to go.
Hey man, get up. You're gonna miss the fireworks.
Nah man, I'm good. Just leave me here, I'll be alright.
Really man? You're gonna sleep on the New Year's?
Dude, I'm lit as hell. I am not moving.
But you're gonna get sick on my couch, aren't you? Come on and throw up outside if you're gonna yak.
Hey man, I can hold my liquor. I ain't never thrown up in anybody's house. Just ask anybody, alright? I just need a nap, okay? So just let me be and let me lay down.
Alright man, listen to me. You better not go upstairs. You hear me?
Yeah, man, whatever.
Alright, just come outside if you're feeling better.
Larry finally left me alone and went out to the backyard. Then, I was alone at about half an inch from blacking out completely. The only thing that kept me conscious was what Larry had just said, what he was always saying about the upstairs. The stairwell was staring right at me, making me wonder why in the world he was so serious about that over all other things. Larry never cared if somebody shattered a $500 vase in their drunkenness, but it was like we all lived in fear of what would happen if somebody went upstairs. The curiosity was killing me, despite being hammered out of my mind. At some point, I heard somebody call out that it was just 5 minutes before midnight. Fireworks were already being set off prematurely, so I felt like there was no better time than then. Despite being unable to even walk, I slid off the couch and crawled on the floor to the stairwell. Then I dragged myself up the steps. I had to stop a few times just to clench my stomach so I wouldn't yak right on the stairs, but I made it up eventually. The landing came out to a long empty hallway that was pitch black. I made out 4 doors along the wall. I crawled along the floor to the first one and reached up to open it. Then I peeked inside. Nothing, just a normal bedroom, although it didn't look like anyone actually lived in it. I shut the door and made my way over to the next one. Same thing, just a normal room, except this one was an office. The third room wasn't special either. It was just a completely empty space. All that was left was the 4th door at the far end of the hallway. Whatever the secret was, I thought, it had to be behind that door. I was running out of steam, but I made one last push. As I got close to the door, I heard muffled screaming from outside, growing louder and louder. I then realized they were just counting down from 10. By then, I already had my hand on the doorknob, but I made it a point in my delirium to wait until the stroke of midnight to try to open the door. I turned the doorknob, but it was locked.
Damn it, it's locked.
Then, in that exact moment, Larry body slammed me against the door. It was like he came out of nowhere, but by the time I realized what was happening, he was already putting me in some kind of stranglehold.
You stupid little snake. Do you have any idea what I'm going to do to you?
Hey, Scott, where you at? You good? Can't have you puking on someone's couch again.
If there hadn't been that friend of a friend downstairs looking for me, I'm sure I would have died right then and there. Thankfully, when Larry heard them calling my name, he let me go.
Get the hell out of my house. Don't you even think about coming back unless you have a death wish, you hear me?
He said this as he shoved me back towards the other end of the hallway. The adrenaline from the situation sobered me up just enough to stand and stumble down the hall. But as soon as I got to the stairs, I slipped on the first step and fell down the entire staircase.
Whoa, you okay, man? You need someone to call an ambulance?
There was a horrible commotion when everybody saw me hit the floor. The impact was just about the last thing I remember. That friend that saved me ended up calling an Uber and getting me home. Ever since then, I've had to avoid Larry. I always got weird looks from him at school, but I guess I'm better off not partying anymore anyway.
The new year was just around the corner, and I wanted to celebrate it by going downtown for the countdown. I knew it was tedious since it would take me an hour to reach my destination, but it couldn't be helped because I had no one else to spend New Year's with. What a bummer. I had to live in Canada, moving away from family and friends in the US to accept a once-in-a-blue-moon offer that would hopefully help rectify my family's financial issues. So, even if I didn't want to be alone, sacrifices were necessary. An hour passed, and I finally arrived downtown, surrounded by a massive crowd of about 100 people. Then, the new year eventually came, enticing every couple and family member to land a kiss on the cheek or lips of their loved ones. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I must admit that I was dejected, envious of all the people who had someone to share this special occasion with. Nonetheless, there was no reason for me to stay in hibernation mode in my apartment. As I watched the fireworks flutter in the sky, all I could think about was what New Year's resolutions I had planned to set for myself for the following year. As I was bombarded with the soaring crowd, I started getting bumped and pushed around like I was some kind of super featherweight. Then, moments later, I was pushed from behind by some random woman who held her boyfriend close to her. I looked at her, and I could tell she was dismayed by my presence. So, infuriated, she gave me her 2 cents, saying,
"You watch who? See you stepping on, eh? Don't make me link up my shorties to rush you, little waste you. Dip before I grab my ting, still."
Not wanting to add more insult to injury for the night, I simply apologized and moved away. Having lost my enthusiasm, I decided to shrug it off and wait for the bus heading home. When it finally arrived, I wasn't surprised to see that it was empty. After all, everyone else was still downtown partying to their heart's content. I heaved a hefty sigh and alleviated my negative emotions by listening to some Christmas songs on my phone. When I finished paying for my bus fare, my peripheral vision caught sight of a seemingly friendly couple sitting at the back of the bus, seemingly smiling from ear to ear. They sat still with their eyes glued directly towards the seat in front of them, not saying a word. This gave me the impression that they were easy to interact or have conversation with. So, instead of avoiding the opportunity to make new friends, I decided to approach them. However, as soon as I sat across from the couple, hoping to start my first positive interaction of the new year, the man's smile changed into something more malicious as he scanned my body from head to toe, oblivious to his girlfriend sitting beside him. As terrible as this may sound, what I thought would be the start of a friendly conversation gradually became awkward, making it difficult to understand their behavior toward me. Aside from the creep inappropriately checking me out, his girlfriend seemed a tad bizarre, wearing shades despite it being nighttime. However, it was too late to back out now, and so I forced a smile and said,
"Happy New Year, guys. How's it going?"
Dismissing my effort to approach them, the man winked at me and said, "Hey there, beautiful. You looking hot tonight. I'd definitely take you out if you insist." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I kept my mouth sealed as I glanced at his girlfriend, who remained smiling like she wasn't bothered at all. Feeling more awkward than I already was, I nodded my head ever so slightly and thanked the man for his compliment.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
At one point, the bus drove across a bumpy road where the girl's shades came off her face and dropped to the floor, revealing something so frightening that I wanted to get off the bus immediately. There she was, a woman looking happy yet gaunt all at the same time, staring directly at me with a pair of round, pretentious eyes. A void of darkness surrounded them, giving me the impression that she hadn't slept in ages. I tried to look away. However, the couple's spine-chilling gaze would remain. So, knowing there wouldn't be another bus stop until an hour later, I had no choice but to remain seated. Moments later, we came across another bump, and that's when the girl's head snapped to the side, a little past 180 degrees, landing on that guy's shoulder. Oddly enough, the man didn't seem to care at all. He didn't even take a moment to glance at her. He appeared to be so fixated on me that he forgot about her. As the woman continued to stare, I could see her eyes begin to drip with blood, like she was some kind of Bloody Mary in the flesh. I was completely horrified and grossed out, constantly checking the time on my phone, hoping I could just get off the bus. Then, moments later, the man asked,
Hey, would you be a helpful little girl and help me bring my drunk girlfriend home? 4 hands are better than 2, right?
Anxious and pessimistically cautious, I politely declined, thinking it could all just be a part of their scheme. However, the man frowned, unable to accept my reply.
Well, I'm not asking you to. I'm telling you to.
My body trembling, I held my ground and said,
I said no. She's not my responsibility. Besides, you're more than capable of taking her home.
I don't care. You will do as I say. You understand? I need your help. Please, ma'am.
Then, without holding back, the man shattered the glass window next to him with unbelievable strength and rage by slamming his fist against it.
Hey, what's all the ruckus back there?
The bus driver hollered.
Mind your business, old man.
The tension grew as the bus driver stepped on it, accelerating his speed.
Don't provoke me, boy.
Then, he came to a sudden halt, glanced at the crazed man, and said,
Get off this bus, now.
I sat in fear, unable to move a muscle as the creep chuckled ominously, heedless of the driver's words.
What if I say no? This doesn't have to get ugly, boy. I'll say it one more time. Get the hell off the bus or I'm calling the cops.
They glared at each other for a moment until the creep finally caved in, and then he picked up the woman on his shoulder, her eyes still open as they both left the bus. The bus driver proceeded to drive off. I managed to arrive home safely, falling asleep almost instantly due to the stress. But when I turned on the TV to watch the news the following day, the reporter spoke of a man wanted for a potential murder case. Upon seeing the photos on the screen, I covered my mouth in disbelief as I recognized them as the man and the woman from the bus that night. I couldn't help but throw up that morning, wondering if that woman was even alive to begin with, recalling how she stared at me the entire time we were on the bus. I used to frequent this gym a lot towards the end of last year. I needed my body to be in the right condition for the big year I was planning on having, and I wanted to be ahead of the curve. So instead of waiting until January, I got the jump on the New Year's resolutions and started working out around the end of November. I hadn't gone to the gym in a while, but I knew how it usually went with the guys there. I don't like getting catcalled and stared at constantly, so I would always work out late at night. However, there was one guy who I didn't mind too much when he catcalled me. I know that's a bad thing to admit, but I liked him. He wasn't the definition of handsome to most people, but to me, he was the sort of guy that I found attractive for some reason. We said hi to each other every night, as we were both consistently going around the same time. Eventually, as our conversations grew, we ended up working out together. One thing led to another, and suddenly, I was going on dates with him and bringing him home to my parents. My parents and friends all said the same thing, that he looked like some kind of Frankenstein. At the time, I acted super offended on his behalf. I always thought he was different from the other guys I dated in the past. For instance, he used to do this thing every time we were together, where he'd tell me to hold out my ring finger, then he'd grab it really tight and say,
Together forever?
in that really deep voice of his. Of course I would respond back with,
Together forever.
and he'd let go. When it came close to New Year's, he invited me over to his house for a dinner party to meet his family. It seemed important to him, so I agreed. Unfortunately, when I got there, the romantic fantasy I was deluding myself with started to fall apart. I knocked on the door and my boyfriend answered, bringing me inside. The first thing I noticed was that the house smelled horrible. I wanted to throw up so bad, but was somehow able to hold my composure. The next room over was the kitchen. The lights were off, but I could see his father sitting at the table hunched over, slack-jawed and drooling. Every few seconds, his neck would twitch, but other than that, he was motionless, his lifeless eyes just staring off into space. And his younger son was no different. He stood in the corner with his back to us, staring intently at the old-fashioned clock, waiting for the New Year countdown. I noticed that the clock was several hours off, but I wasn't sure if any of them knew. I could also see his mother by the sink, and for some ungodly reason, she was washing the family cat, and the cat was just as spaced out as the rest of them. But somehow, it was the most normal-looking living thing in the household. Seeing the whole family together and realizing just how distorted their features were made me sick to my stomach. What all my friends were saying this whole time finally clicked in my head. They all looked like relatives of that weird, malformed brute from the Goonies. I reluctantly took my seat at the table and hoped the night would go better. My boyfriend went to fix me some food by the kitchen counter, leaving me to sit awkwardly with his father. With 2 hours left until midnight, I tried to make small talk with him.
You have a wonderful house. What do you do for work? Don't want to talk, huh? I understand. So, how'd you meet your wife?
I couldn't get a word out of that man. I'm not even sure he knew I was there. I shivered in fear and stopped trying to make conversation. After an eternity passed, my date came back with a plate of food. When he put it down in front of me, I couldn't help but gag as it was just a can of cat food on a crusty plate. I kindly rejected him, saying I wasn't feeling hungry and had lost my appetite. That's when he started yelling at me saying,
What? My mom worked hard on cooking that for our New Year's party. You better eat it.
But it's just cat food. I can see the can on the counter.
He never yelled at me like that before. I was shaken up, but when I called him out on the cat food, he flipped out even more. He gave me this look on his face that a toddler would make when they didn't get what they wanted. What made things more disturbing was how he started to act like one too, grabbing a handful of the cat food and shoving it into his mouth. Seeing a fully grown adult act in such a manner was one of the most disturbing things I had ever seen. The next hour was really awkward. His mother came in from the kitchen to sit with us. I was hoping that she would be talkative, but she looked no less brain dead than her husband. We all sat there in complete silence, while all of them stared off into space, except for my date. He glared at me the entire time, unable to move on from being mad at me for not eating the slop I was offered. I checked my phone, and 12 a.m. had finally hit. It was officially New Year's. The mother stood up and kissed the father, but what made things all the more bizarre was when she hobbled over and kissed the little brother, and then my date. When I say kissed, I don't mean a simple peck on the cheek. It was a full-out kiss on the mouth. That's when I knew there was something seriously wrong, and I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But before I could even stand, that giant, freakish man was looming over me. He grabbed my ring finger in a vice grip and started chanting,
Together forever, together forever, together forever.
And that's when I heard his family speak for the first time.
Together forever.
Together forever. Together forever.
He started squeezing my finger so tight that I thought he might break it.
Ow, stop it, let me go!
Ow,
Stop
stop
it,
it, let me go.
Shut up, let go of me!
Shut up, let go of me. Shut up, let go of me.
Stop it, why are you doing this? What's going on? Stop it, why are you doing this? What's going on?
I couldn't comprehend what was going on. All I remember was fighting against his grip like I was fighting for my life. When I finally got free, I bolted straight out of the door. It was snowing outside, but I didn't waste time putting my coat or shoes on. I kept running down the street until I was far enough away to be sure that I wasn't being followed. I then called an Uber and went home. I thought about calling the cops, but I had no idea what I'd even say to them. Since then, I ended up blocking his number and canceling my gym membership just so I could move on and forget all about it.